Man, it's official, Micah Parsons' camp just had one of the most embarrassing moments we've seen in the NFL spotlight. His agent, David Mulagheta, went on ESPN's First Take and tried to do damage control. But it only made things worse. Instead of defending his client with facts, he came across like a man scrambling to cover up mistake after mistake. Think about it. When have you ever seen an NFL agent basically give a post-fight interview after getting completely outplayed by an owner like Jerry Jones? That's what this felt like, a desperate attempt to spin the story. But in reality, this PR disaster only buried Micah deeper. Now let me be clear, I've been critical of Micah throughout this saga, maybe even harsher than I should have been at times. But the real issue here isn't Micah himself, it's his representation. His agent has turned what could have been a routine situation into a full-blown circus. Mulagheta went on national TV and tossed out claims that don't hold up. Lies, plain and simple. And the worst part? It's obvious that this wasn't about defending Micah, it was about protecting his own reputation. And here's where it gets even messier. Guys like Ryan Clark and Stephen A. Smith have personal connections to Mulagheta. They've worked with him. They move in the same circles. So what we saw today wasn't just analysis, it was a media blitz designed to shield Micah's agent from blame, while painting the Cowboys as the villains. But let's not get it twisted. This whole mess, from the questionable injury talk to the confusion around the trade rumors, has one common thread: Micah's agent creating a PR nightmare that his client did not need. And now here's the real problem: Micah Parsons' own agent has made him look untrustworthy in the eyes of fans. Instead of protecting his client, David Mulagheta has put Micah in a position where people believe he's been lying all along. On First Take, Mulagheta claimed that Micah had a legitimate back injury and insisted that it had nothing to do with his contract situation. He said Parsons was never going to miss time. But if that's true, then why did this entire storyline even exist? Why go out of your way to get a second opinion if you already knew Micah was going to play through it? That's where the story falls apart. Even Micah's own teammates were joking about the so-called injury, making it look like the whole thing was never serious to begin with. Trevin Diggs was caught laughing about it, and it came across like an inside joke instead of a real concern. So let's be real here. If Micah was always going to suit up, what was the point of the extra medical evaluations? The Cowboys had already given him treatment and a plan for recovery. Creating more drama around it only added fuel to the fire. At the end of the day, the mixed messaging didn't just confuse fans, it made Micah look like he was trying to play games with the truth. And that's not fair to him, because this entire mess came from his agent's mishandling of the situation. Here's what doesn't add up. If the Cowboys already knew about Micah's back issue and had acknowledged it, why chase a second opinion? The only reason to do that would be to get a doctor to say the injury was severe enough to justify missing games while still getting paid. That's the angle fans see, and it's insulting to act like we wouldn't notice. This is what bothers me most about David Mulagheta. He talks like he's smarter than everyone else, trying to downplay the facts with a laugh and a shrug. But fans aren't stupid. We know when someone's dodging the truth. Now here's the kicker. As soon as Micah was traded, he was suddenly back on the practice field. This same guy who supposedly couldn't practice with the Cowboys all offseason and all training camp because of his injury was magically good to go the moment he joined his new team. If he was always planning to play, why didn't he practice in Dallas? Why wait until he's in a new uniform to show up on the field? The logic just doesn't hold. Mulagheta keeps insisting that Micah had a real injury but was never told to sit out. Yet the timeline speaks louder than words. Cowboys fans watched him miss practice after practice, then flip the switch instantly after a trade. That looks less like injury management and more like a cover-up gone wrong. This is where David Mulagheta completely failed his client. Instead of guiding Micah and keeping him away from unnecessary media chatter, he let the situation spiral out of control. Even Trevin Diggs hinted that Micah was always planning to play, it just depended on how his back felt. And now, the moment he's traded, he's practicing again. That tells us everything we need to know. What we're seeing right now is pure damage control. Mulagheta turned Micah's career into collateral damage in his power struggle with Jerry Jones. And in the end, it backfired. He gambled with Micah's reputation, and now he's scrambling to fix it because his client is unhappy. Let's be real, Micah never wanted to be in Green Bay. He didn't ask for this trade, and yet here he is, stuck in a situation he didn't choose. And now, instead of looking like one of the NFL's brightest stars, he looks like a player caught in the middle of chaos he never created. Cowboys fans see right through it. They feel betrayed, and honestly, who can blame them? This kind of drama doesn't fly in Dallas. You can't play with the emotions of an entire fan base, teasing trade requests, sitting out, and fueling rumors, only to flip the story later. At the end of the day, fans wanted honesty and leadership. What they got was confusion and mixed messages, and whether the blame falls on Jerry Jones or Micah's agent, the result is the same. The trust is broken. Fans have every right to feel betrayed. Micah Parsons was put on a pedestal because of everything he promised this team, but when it came down to it, he didn't deliver. Whether it was his own choice or his agent pulling the strings, the result is the same. His reputation took a hit. Mulagheta has made Micah look bad, and now he's scrambling to clean up the mess. Was the back injury real? Was he truly going to play? These questions only exist because of the way his camp handled the situation. And let's not forget that injury conveniently showed up right at training camp, the same time he started his so-called hold-in. Fans see through that. The fact is, Micah was always going to play. He was ready to be on the field against the Eagles, even though he hadn't practiced all summer and wasn't in true football shape. That contradiction is why so many people feel misled. Then comes the contract drama. Jerry Jones claimed that during negotiations, Mulagheta responded to an offer by saying, "Stick it up there." Mulagheta denied ever saying that, insisting he's never used that phrase in his entire career. Maybe he didn't, but here's the problem. When your credibility is already shot, people aren't going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's exactly where we're at. Cowboys fans don't know what to believe anymore. Mulagheta tried to spin it, saying Jerry misrepresented his words. He claimed all he told the Cowboys was, "If you think this deal is finalized and I'm just going to rubber stamp it, don't bother sending it over. Stop playing games." But come on, we all know what that really means. It's the same message Jerry repeated in his own way. Don't waste my time with a weak contract. Whether you say don't send it or stick it where the sun don't shine, the sentiment is identical. And here's the real issue. When have you ever seen an NFL agent forced to go on TV and explain himself after a contract negotiation? That alone tells you everything. Mulagheta overplayed his hand. He called Jerry Jones' bluff, and he never expected Jerry to push back. But Jerry did. Instead of folding, Jerry reminded everyone that he runs the Cowboys. He refused to let an agent dictate terms or drag the franchise into chaos. Jerry shut down the distractions and made it clear, this team is about football, not games. Mulagheta thought he could strong-arm the Cowboys. Instead, he ended up costing his client leverage, trust, and possibly his relationship with the very team he wanted to stay with. And now, the only prize he won was embarrassment. This disaster doesn't fall on Micah Parsons, it falls squarely on his agent. Now let's get to the contract itself, because this is where David Mulagheta really started twisting words. The question was simple. Did Jerry Jones offer to make Micah Parsons the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history? Yes or no, that's it. And Jerry was very specific. He said guaranteed money. That's the only number that truly matters to players, because it's the money they get no matter what happens. But instead of answering directly, Mulagheta danced around it. He called it a loaded question, tried to add qualifiers, and shifted the conversation to average annual value APY. That's classic spin. Here's the truth. Jerry's offer reportedly included $40.5 million per year, which at the time would have made Micah the highest-paid defensive player in the league. From a guaranteed money standpoint, Jerry was ready to set history. Mulagheta didn't deny that. He just tried to blur the lines, hoping fans wouldn't notice the difference. But we did, and the more he talks, the clearer it becomes. The Cowboys made a record-setting offer, and it was Mulagheta who fumbled it. Here's where the details really matter. Mulagheta admitted that from an APY standpoint, Jerry's offer would have made Micah Parsons the highest-paid defensive player in football. And Jerry went even further, saying the guaranteed money on the table was higher than what Green Bay eventually gave him. So where's the lie? The sticking point wasn't about the headline number, it was about cash flow and structure. The Cowboys wanted to manage the salary cap, spreading the money out instead of front-loading it. That meant in the first 3 years of the deal, Micah wouldn't technically rank as the highest-paid player, even though the full value and guaranteed money were historic. That's what Mulagheta took issue with. But let's be honest, that's not a betrayal, that's smart cap management. Every team does it. The difference here is that instead of negotiating in good faith, Mulagheta made it look like the Cowboys were shortchanging Micah, when in reality, they were offering him one of the biggest contracts in NFL history. And let's not forget another key factor: Dallas wanted a 5-year deal, while Mulagheta pushed for 4. That extra year could swing $30 to $40 million depending on where the pass rusher market goes. That's what this was really about, not respect, not loyalty, but squeezing every last dollar. And here's the irony: Micah has been telling fans for years that money doesn't drive him, that he cares more about football and winning. Yet thanks to his agent's handling of this negotiation, he now looks like the opposite. He looks like a guy chasing cash instead of rings. Mulagheta kept insisting that Micah doesn't care about being the highest-paid defender, that money isn't what drives him. But every move his camp has made screams the opposite. You can't say you don't care about $40 million per year, then turn around and install a deal that would have made you the richest non-quarterback in league history. That's not just a contradiction, it's a credibility killer. And then came the wild claims. Mulagheta suggested that in 4 years, pass rushers could be earning $65 to $70 million a year. Really? On what planet? Yes, the salary cap is going up, but those numbers sound like fantasy. Instead of sounding shrewd, it came across as desperate spin to justify blowing up negotiations that were already stacked in Micah's favor. Then there's the biggest lie of all. Mulagheta said this was never personal. He claimed Jerry Jones was just doing his job and that he never saw it as a personal battle. But the evidence says otherwise. Micah himself admitted he was tired of being attacked, tired of the tension. He wasn't talking to Jerry. He was frustrated, emotional, and disconnected from the team. That's personal. This is the core of the problem. Instead of keeping the focus on football, Mulagheta dragged Micah into a war of egos. And in the process, he damaged his client's reputation, fractured trust with fans, and left the Cowboys in chaos. Mulagheta tried to justify himself by throwing around contract jargon, guarantees, APYs, signing bonuses, cash flow. But let's be real, all that was nothing more than a sales pitch to prove why players still need an agent. Because if you strip it down, Micah Parsons could have hired a lawyer to review the deal and handled the rest himself. He didn't need Mulagheta to turn this into a circus. And here's the most disingenuous part. At no point did Jerry Jones say Micah had to negotiate alone. At no point did Jerry say he didn't want Micah to have professional representation. What Jerry did say was simple. He wasn't going to spend days negotiating directly with Micah, only to have Mulagheta show up afterward and treat that progress as the new starting point. That's not how real negotiations work, that's playing games. Mulagheta, though, tried to frame it as if he was just doing his job, claiming, Micah's job is to chase quarterbacks, and my job is to chase commas for him. Nice soundbite, but the truth is different. His job was to protect his client's career, his reputation, and his relationship with the Cowboys. And on every single front, he failed. In the end, all the excuses, all the wordplay, all the spin, it doesn't change the reality. Micah Parsons has been dragged into a PR disaster he never needed. And it's his agent who lit the match. And then Mulagheta took it a step further. Remember, he's not just Micah Parsons' agent, he also represents wide receiver George Pickens, who's in the final year of his deal. On first take, Mulagheta tried to play it cool, saying, "There's nothing personal here. It's just business. If George performs the way we expect him to, as one of the best receivers in the league, we'll have those conversations with the Cowboys about a long-term deal." Stop right there. That's straight-up nonsense. The Cowboys didn't trade for George Pickens just to let him walk a year later. That's not how this franchise operates, and everyone knows it. Cut the act. And here's where the hypocrisy really comes in. Mulagheta claims it's not personal. Yet at the same time, he's pushing for the NFLPA to investigate Jerry Jones and how these negotiations were handled. Not personal? That's the definition of personal. That's not protecting your player, that's trying to turn yourself into a whistleblower. At the end of the day, this was nothing but a PR stunt. Mulagheta made Micah Parsons look bad, and now he's scrambling to do damage control. Suddenly, he wants to spin it as if he's the noble figure in all this, the guy looking out for everyone. But the truth is, he already showed his hand. He pushed too far, lost leverage, and dragged Micah's name through the mud. And then, as if none of that happened, he had the audacity to say Micah always wanted to be a Cowboy. Really? After all the chaos, the trade talk, the tension, now you're playing the loyalty card? That's not strategy. That's desperation. And then came the final spin. Micah always wanted to be a Cowboy. We did everything we could to keep him in Dallas. Stop it. If that was really the truth, then why push for a trade in the first place? Why advise your client to even consider leaving? You can't play both sides like that. David Mulagheta tried to paint himself as some freedom fighter for players, but in the end, all he did was make Micah Parsons look bad. And this is the last time I'm wasting energy on Mulagheta and Micah in this saga. From here on out, if his name comes up again, it'll probably be tied to George Pickens. But as far as Parsons goes, I'm done. Now, let me be real here. My frustration with Mulagheta and the way the media spun this has spilled over into how I've spoken about Micah. Maybe I've been harder on him than I should have been. But at the end of the day, he let me down. Not just as a player, but as a man. When you make bold promises, when you put yourself on a pedestal, and when you accept all the love and praise from the fans for saying those things, you've got to stand on it. Otherwise, it feels like you're just playing both sides. And that's exactly how this whole situation looked. I lost respect through all of this, not because Micah isn't great, he is, but because I believe in being a man of your word. Cowboys fans believe in that. And what Mulagheta did was make his client look like a liar, like someone who wasn't willing to stand on what he said. That's why fans are fed up. That's why Cowboys Nation doesn't want to hear another excuse. Because in the end, it feels like we were lied to, deceived, played. And you know what? We're done with it. Cowboys fans aren't about to turn on this team over some Green Bay Packer leverage play. That's not happening. So let's move on. Let's focus on football. Let's get ready for Philly. Because no matter what happens off the field, I'm still riding with my team. I'm still repping the star. How about them Cowboys?